That's not the right one. This is the right one. Although it doesn't look like the right one. We're gonna have a little music going on in our streams. The normal one. Oh, now I'm just messing everything up. Alright. There we go. That's all fine. Let's see how this looks. That's fine. This is all fine now. Alright. Hey, Ross! Oh, that's not what I meant to do. We're just gonna chill out and read some Latin today. And I don't know if that's the thing people are into, but that's the thing I'm gonna do. Because I feel like reading some Latin. As one does. Alright. Sure, why not? Exactly. Exactly. Because the Aeneid's great. So yeah, we're just gonna start the Aeneid today. And get for however long we get. I'm just gonna do it until about 5:30 my time, which is now only 35 minutes. Be working alongside the stream reviewing some submissions. Sounds good. Have fun. It always takes a little bit longer to get set up than I think it's going to. Do you ever have that problem? Like, oh, I'll just hop right onto my stream after work. Do an hour stream, and then it's like almost 30 minutes, and you're like, oh, that's the thing that's happening. Alright, real quick, let's move my camera over here for people, and then we can make that nice and big, and I won't be interrupting the text, which as you see is on the left over here. So I'm just using this Dickinson College commentaries, in case we end up having questions and people want to ask stuff about the Aeneid, then they can. And even though I know a lot of stuff, I don't necessarily remember all the stuff. I've locked in stream times on my calendar so I don't allow things to get in the way. That's fair. Hey, Shadow! I'm translating Latin today, so... Latin's the best, essentially. It's actually a terrible language in a lot of ways, but it's my favorite all the same. I used to do Latin poetry. It was my field. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do a little Latin poetry, Virgil's Aeneid. For context, in case you haven't read any, my Latin goes about as far as lorem ipsum dolor sit amet. That's funny, Roz. I like that. This is one of the greatest poems ever written. One of the greatest works of Western literature. It's written by a guy named Virgil. Publius Virgilius Maro is his full name, actually. He was writing around 20 BC, give or take. He died, I believe, in 18... Does that check out? Anyway, he died. Any relation to Virgil Tracy? I don't know who that is. I'm sorry. So I'm gonna say no. Some places spell Virgil with an E in the front. Some places spell Virgil with an I in the front, like Virgil Tracy. I actually prefer the E, so I'm glad that these people spell it with the E. This is about the founding of Rome, kind of. So if you're familiar with the Trojan War, with the Iliad or the Odyssey, this is in that kind of tradition. So the Iliad and the Odyssey were composed, approximately 800 years before this. So quite a bit of time, just a little, in Greek. So Virgil's writing about 800 years after that, but the story takes place along the same time because Aeneas is a Trojan warrior who survived the war. So he actually is mentioned in the Iliad, and he is going to die but Poseidon saves his life and says, "You are meant for better things, so we're not going to let you die here." And the Romans kind of brought him into their mythology and saying, you know, from him we were connected to the Greek world and the Greek mythological tradition. So Virgil here, character from Thunderbirds, named after an astronaut. Ah, right. There were other people who composed poems about Aeneas before this, but Virgil is the one that we have, and that has had the most influence continuing in the Western tradition. Unfortunately, we've lost a lot of the previous stuff. But we have this, and we have the opening. The opening 11 lines of book 1 here is where we'll start, because that's a good place to start. The opening of epic poems generally has a little summary at the very beginning. It's called the proem. So we're going to focus on the proem today and get through that and just kind of see how much further we get. In the background, you will be hearing the soundtrack, the Balance and Ruin, Overclocked Remix, the Final Fantasy VI OC Remix album. So that's what's going on in the background there. Just for a little, which I keep closing instead of just minimizing. Alright, we can do this. Minimize. There we go. Alright, it is written in a certain meter, which means there are certain rhythms of long and short. That's how they composed poetry. Well, that's how most poetry was composed. We'll say it that way. Why aren't you making a sound? Things are just really quiet. There it goes. Latin had a slightly different tradition, but then once it wanted to be more Greek, they decided to go with Greek poetic customs. So that meant using dactylic hexameter for meter. Yay! It's like a prologue for things that are more M than log. Exactly. Pro-M. Yep. That's totally how you spell it too. So it's a little summary of the poem. It's the proem. Alright. Let me get some water. I'm going to do my best to read these lines out loud in meter. Please be patient, because it's been a while. ARMA VIRUMQUE CANO Troiae qui primus ab oris. Italiam fato profegus Lavinia venit. Littora multilet terris jactatus et alto. Vi superam saevae memoriam unis ob iram. That line get away from me. Malta coquet bello passus dum conderet urbem. Inferet codeos latio genus unde latinum. Albani qua patres at qual daimonia Romae. Musa mihi causas memoria quo numine laiso. Quid vedolens regina deum tot volvere causas. In segnem pietate verum tot adire tot adir de labores. Impuleret tantainanimis cae lestibus irae. Got a little bit rustier at the end there, didn't I? But it's got that kind of dun da da dun da 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 rhythm to it, so you can kind of feel it. So, ARMA VIRUMQUE CANO. I sing of arms and the man. Troy a cui primo sub oris Italiam fatto profugus Lavinia venet. Litora. We have to go all the way down to Litora. So I sing of arms and the man who first from the shores of Troy came as a exile to Italy and the Lavinian shores by fate, fato. So they're not giving us his name. That's pretty common. Well, somewhat common. In the Iliad, you get the name pretty soon, that this is about Achilles. In the Odyssey and here in the Aeneid, they do not give the name of the protagonist. It's kind of like this fun game for the audience to play. Oh, what is the poem going to be about? Who's it going to be about? What's the focus going to be? But Aeneas is clearly identified here by the guy who came from Troy to Italy. There's actually a couple people in mythology who do this. We hear all about that in like book 8. In book 8 and around there, he meets all these other exiles. But Aeneas is a big one. Another feature of this is the story of how I die, kind of, actually. Aeneas actually doesn't die in it. He dies 3 years after the poem. The setting of the poem. So, ancient authors really liked to refer back to other works. It was something of a game for them. Like, how many references can we fit in to other famous pieces of literature? And how many will our audience pick up on? So it's this huge game that people would play. And so ARMA is the weapons, the arms, and it's a reference to the Iliad. The first word of the Iliad is mainin, which is rage. So the Iliad is really the story about war and human life. The Iliad's really amazing. It's probably the best because it is set in this war and it's about the Trojan War, but so much of it is about remembering what matters and not to let the war drive you crazy. So ARMA is tying into that. Virum is the word for man. The first word of the Odyssey is man. Andra moenepe. Because the Odyssey focuses on Odysseus and his adventures and all the kind of like psychological things that he goes through. And so here we have Virgil linking up the Aeneid to both. So this one is about war, that one is about man. Yep. And this one is about both. Oh, Roz, were you quoting Rapunzel to me and I didn't catch it because I still haven't seen that movie? Sorry. I prefer the story that begins, in the beginning was logic, and the logic was with God, and the logic was God. We can read some of that too. Ho logos. The word. And the word became flesh. That's in Greek though. Today I'm doing Latin. Alright. So we're talking about that guy. Now we're on line 3 again. Multilet teris jactatus et alto vi superam. We'll pause there. Okay. That guy, Ile, was also tossed about a lot, both on land and on sea, by the strength of the gods. Saive memoram eunonis ab iram, on account of the remembering anger of savage Juno. That guy. Well, that's what Ile is. Ile means that guy. That is 100% what it means. It is a demonstrative, meaning that this is hic. Latin doesn't have a word for the. It does not have a kind of a neutral, definite article. So you will use hic and ile a lot just to mean him or the guy. But ile, it means that. It can also mean the famous or the illustrious. So it really is kind of like, you know, that guy, Ile, the famous one who was tossed about, not that other guy. And then Juno, most people are probably up on their Greek and Roman gods, but Juno is the Roman name for Hera. I've taught mythology long enough that I do get a little bit picky, and I do like to say things like the Greek and the Roman gods aren't equivalent. The Roman understanding and the Greek understanding of the gods do differ. But for purposes of the mythology here, right, Juno is Hera, the queen of the gods, the goddess of marriage, and probably some other stuff. She doesn't do too much other than get annoyed at Jupiter / Zeus. Rightfully so. Juno is a moon. That is also true. That is also true, actually, Ross. You're right. Alright. So we know that this is about the guy who goes to Italy after suffering a lot because Juno is mad at him. Okay. Yeah, and I like that. The memorem iram. The remembering anger. Like, she's never gonna forget. She is never gonna forget. Why does she hate him so much? We'll get into that. There's kind of dual reasons in Virgil's version. Alright, we're on multa quoquet bello passus. Suffering also a lot of things in war. Or like, passus, I guess, because it's set in the past, having suffered many things also in war. Dum conderet urbem, inferet quae deus latior. While he was trying to found the city and bringing his gods to Latium. So there are a couple wars that he has to fight. Of course, the Trojan War that he left, and then the wars that he'll fight in Italy. So this guy's going to have to do a lot in order to found Rome, which he doesn't even get to do in this book. It's a major letdown. Genus unde Latium albanique patres at... Oh, sorry, there's some elisions here. Genus unde Latium albanique patres at qualtae moenia Romae. Unde is a great word because it means whence. So whence the Latin race and the Alban fathers and the walls of lofty Rome. Moenia altae Romae. So we get a transferred epithet. So what that means is instead of saying the high walls of Rome, they say the walls of high Rome. Because it's fun in poetry when you transfer the adjective to the other word. That cracks people up, apparently. So Virgil's setting out here. From what this guy does, we get all of the kings of Rome and Rome itself. Musa! O muse, direct address, in the vocative. Mihi causas memora. Recall the reasons to me. Causas. So causas can be, causes. The reasons. It can even be misfortunes. because the Romans generally, if something happens, it's bad. Like, they're very rarely neutral events. They didn't like things happening. By the way, is the macron sign on vowels like E just a pronunciation guide, or is it actually considered a different letter? Good question, Roz. In Latin, they are not different letters. It's a pronunciation thing. With the macron, it means it's a long vowel instead of a short. So it has a different pronunciation, but it is not a different letter. And in other editions, you won't have macrons. This edition, because it's made for easy access Latin students, is using the macrons, but you could write it without the lines and it'd be totally the same. That's an excellent question. Another question that is not coming up here, but we saw it back in line 4 with Eunonis. So Juno and Juno. There was no J in Latin. They just used a hard I. So Juno. The same is with V's and U's. They were not different letters, but this edition is writing them differently for everybody's sanity. So like ARMA VIRUM. You could write that with all U's. Thanks, Latin. Thanks. Alright. Yeah, so recall the events to me. Mihi causas memora. And this is another interesting difference between what Virgil is doing and what other writers did. He started out by saying, CANO, I'm going to sing, and in line 6 and 8, he invokes the muse. Other epics will invoke the muses right away. Let me try and think. Meninaida Tea is the beginning of the Iliad. And that's goddess sing about the wrath for me. The wrath of Achilles. And then in the Odyssey, it's Andra Moya Nepe. So it's like, speak to me about the guy. So the author is taking less action in those poems. Alright. Musa, quo, there we are. Quo numine laiso, quidve dolens regina deum tot volvere casus, insignem pietate verum. I don't know why I'm tripping over these words. Tot adere labores impoleret. Alright. So now he's asking what the cause is. By what injured power, quo numine laiso, and like grieving what, quid dolens, the queen of the gods, impuleret, that's our verb, we go down to 11, like, forced the man who was marked with piety, insignem pietate verum, to undergo so many misfortunes and to approach so many labors. You know, why is Juno so mad that this pious hero, Aeneas, has to suffer all these things? Like, why? Why? Tantaine animus caelestibus irae. This is kind of the closing question for the whole poem that we're supposed to consider. Are there so great wraths, he's using it in the plural, I don't know why, in heavenly souls? So that's like the Aeneid question. It's like the Aeneid really focuses a lot on emotions, both human and divine, the nature of divinity. So why do gods hurt innocent people? Why do gods let innocent people suffer? Are the gods just made up, and we, invoke gods to do the things that we want to do? so on and so forth. These are the questions that Virgil explores in the Aeneid. Without a clear answer, it's not ever solved, as it were. Virgil doesn't come to any firm conclusions, and there's a lot of interpretations for why. You know, some people are very, oh, Virgil was a good old Roman, and he really loved Rome and Aeneas and Augustus. At this point in time, the Emperor Augustus, who you may or may not have heard of. In the case of Roman gods, they let innocent people get hurt because they're too busy bickering. Yeah, pretty much. But that question you raise, Roz, is part of the difference in the Roman world between mythology and religion and like personal cult. There's layers to the gods at this point. You know, they tell stories about the gods and they put their gods in ridiculous situations, but it's in a lot of ways disconnected from the religion and how they worship their gods. Which I find like a really fascinating interplay. Like, you're writing this about your gods, you're doing this worship, like, what do you believe? Because, as you know, as a Catholic, as a Christian, you know, personal faith really matters. It's really a big deal. To the Romans, that's not the case. It's all ritual. So there's a lot of interesting layers in society and how they view things. One of those interesting layers is the Emperor Augustus. Cakes have layers. Delicious. I could go for some cake. Anyway. So the Emperor Augustus, most people have heard of, the guy after Julius Caesar, the first... We're just going to call him the first emperor of Rome, Augustus. It's fine. It's easy enough. And that's when Virgil's writing. Virgil has witnessed the civil war previous to this, witnessed Augustus fighting for power with Mark Antony, Cleopatra, and others. Pompey, Sextus Pompey. He always gets forgotten, but he's important in the Aeneid. But now Augustus is actually in charge, and war has ceased, and things are calming down when Virgil's writing this. So there's a lot of ambiguous political commentary. And I tend to fall in the camp of ambiguity. That Virgil is making this, like, intentionally unclear. And I think I've been most persuaded in how I read this by a work called Virgil the Partisan. I think that's what it's called. And the main part is that he's happy with Augustus, he's happy with the end of the Civil War, but the thing about Civil War is that you have to be friends with the losers, right? Otherwise, society cannot continue, because that's the nature of Civil War. They are your family. And so in the Aeneid, he really crafts this amazing epic where you get to witness that and kind of live through it in the poetry. And it ends when the gods say, okay, we're done, we're going to make a truce. Like, we have to just agree to get along now because this is getting out of hand. So, very fun, very cool. I like it a lot because I'm a nerd. Alright, let's do a little bit more. Come on. Where? Here we go. Aw, yay, Carthago. Can I make this a little bit smaller so it can appear on one screen? Not quite. I think that's it, right? Yeah, okay, sweet. I can read that. Hopefully you guys can read it all right. If not, you can always... Nerd! Yeah, I'm a huge nerd, Roz. What was the tip-off? Alright. Urbs antiqua fuit. Tirii tenuere coloni Carthago. There was an ancient city, Carthage. The Tyrian settlers controlled it, held it, tenuere. So we're going from that big metaphysical question about the nature of gods to Carthage. The connection is that Juno is the guardian divinity for Carthage. Carthage is her city. So we're gonna learn here that Juno's a little bit peeved because of what happened with Carthage. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry, I'm hitting this as I kind of shift. Kappa? Ancient herbs of Carthage. What's hilarious is I said herbs because that's how I say it sometimes. The actual pronunciation, as far as we know, of URBS is ERPS, like with a P sound, ERPS. But only in that case, right? When it goes into the genitive case, urbis, then it's back to a B. But like that, ERPS. Latin. Why? Alright. And the Tyrians, people from Tyre, which is in the Near East. So if you're unfamiliar with Carthage or Tyre, I mean, we'll hear more about it, obviously, but Tyre is a Phoenician city in the Near East. And the Phoenicians really settled a lot of the Maghreb or Northern Africa, which is the west northern coast of Africa. So not the Egyptian side, not Libya, but west of that. It's called Northern Africa. I don't know why the whole thing's not Northern Africa, but that's just convention. And so they settled along a lot of that in Spain as well. But Carthage was one of their big cities. That could be awkward. Which one is awkward? I missed the which thing you were speaking in reference to, Ross. Italiam contra Tiberina longe ostia. Far away. That's a way to describe Carthage. They're just describing where it is physically now. The alternate pronunciation of ERPS. 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 I like it. Whatever. Alright. So Carthage is opposite Italy and far away from the ports of the Tiber. Okay, great. That's where it is. Dives opum studiis quae asperima belli. Wealthy. Super wealthy. That's not... That doesn't mean super wealthy. I'm just getting lazy. Super wealthy. Rich in stuff. And very... bristly. That's not the best translation of asperima, but that's what we're gonna say. Very bristly in the arts of war. Alright, sweet. Quam uno ferter terris magnis omnibus unam post habita coluisse samo. Okay, which, quam, referring back to Carthage, Juno is said to have cared for more than all the other cities except for Samos. Is that the nominative form? Sames, I think. Super wealthy, rich and stuff, and very hirsutes. I like that. Very nice, I like it. I feel like I'm getting Samos. Okay, yeah, it is the island of Samos. Good. So the island of Samos is Juno's #1 cult thing. So Virgil's just like, after Samos, which we all know is the best, Carthage was where Juno was happiest. Heek! Hic ilias arma, hic cur sunt. Here were her arms, here was her chariot. Ilias again meaning of that lady in this case. Hoc regnum dea gentibus esse, si qua fita sinant. This kingdom... I should probably finish reading the sentence. Iam tum tendit quo fovetque. Hey, Stardust! This is this really exciting game called a book. It's a text-based adventure. From Simulation 2019. I love it. That is a good way to call it. Is Virgil's Aeneid. I just decided to do a little Latin reading sometimes on my chat and see if people enjoyed it. And you get to read a great piece of literature if you don't mind me hanging out and just talking about it. Rod, thankfully, is an excellent sport, so. Alright, so this kingdom, the goddess held on to and cared for the people if the fates allowed it in any way now and then. I'm a little bit confused on what they're trying to say. I mean, okay. I think what they're trying to say is if Carthage hadn't been destroyed, Juno would still be taking care of it a lot, but the fates did not allow it. If in any way, okay, yeah, if in any way Regnum is subject for regno. The end. Okay, infinitive following the sense of wish or desire. Okay. So she cared for it and she wished for it to be for her people if the fates had allowed it. Okay. Mr. Cunningham! Welcome to the stream. I'm reading the opening to Virgil's Aeneid. How are you doing today? Alright. Progenium sed enim Troiano sanguine duci. I had to catch myself for a moment because I've been doing church Latin and the pronunciation is just slightly different. Audierat Tyrias olem quae verteret arces. Alright, but in fact, said enim. Get those words out of the way. But in fact. Who is our subject? I don't know. Oh, that's a problem. It's always a problem when you're just, what is my subject? I have no idea. But in fact, the offspring was springing from Trojan blood. This one got me. What is going on here? Right, Olympus one day, which would overthrow Audirat, right? Audio ardere audiwi. Heard. Yeah. Okay. Somebody heard. Maybe it was Juno. I guess it was still Juno because she was the subject of the last verb. That guy. Oh, that's a good guess, Ross. That guy. Thanks for the lurking, Mr. Cunningham. Alright, she had heard that the progenium, was being sprung out from Trojan soil, which would one day overturn the Tyrian citadels, Tyrias Arces. So she already had a tip-off that somebody from Troy was going to destroy her second favorite city in the whole wide world, and that made her sad. Hinc populum late regem belloque superbum, venturam excidio Libiae, sic volvere parcas. From here, Hink. The king. Oh, I guess this is still part of the prophecies. So from here, the Trojan race would be a people and a king strong in war, but kind of arrogant, super bum-like, overblown, was going to come to destroy Libya, for the destruction of Libya, clearly. Thus, the fates spun. Dun dun dun. Id metuens veterisque memor Saturnia belli, prima quodad Troiaam procaris gesserat Argis. Fearing this, and thinking of the old war, which I think is probably just the Trojan War, which wasn't that long ago. It was like 10 years ago at this point. The Saturnian one, that means Juno, the daughter of Saturn, first had waged... I think I'm getting cut off in the middle of the sentence before we go to the next part. First, that which to Troy she had borne on behalf of her dear Argives. What is that? What is the thing that she brought? You're not gonna tell me, Virgil? Fine. Really? You're really not gonna tell me? Did I skip a line? First, foremost, she was the leader and chief instigator of the gods and heroes who fought on the Greek side at Troy. Right? Oh! The quote is referring to Belly. Obviously. Mindful of the ancient war which she had first waged against Troy for her dear Argives. That's beautiful, Virgil. You're just good job. You done good. Nectum etiam nec detiam causae irarum sae vique dolores. That was terrible reading. Exciderant animo man et alta mente repostum judicium paridis bretae quinurdia formae et genus invisum et genus inviset rapti Ganymedes honores. Alright, not yet, indeed. I just love all those little words in Latin. It's just like, okay. Let's keep throwing those on. Not yet, indeed, were the reasons of her anger and the savage griefs stirred up in her soul. But it remained in her lofty mind. I'm assuming that re postum, the former judgment of Paris, and the injury of her spurred beauty, and the hateful race, and the honors of stolen Ganymede. So there's a lot of things going on in Juno's mind right now. Because, I mean, so she's attacking the Trojans for the Greeks because she loves Argos, because she's worried about Carthage, because Paris said that she wasn't the most beautiful lady, and because Ganymede was her husband's boy, lover, which she wasn't super thrilled about. All those things made her mad at the Trojans, so she fought the war for a lot of reasons. Okay, great. His akensa superjactatos aikoritoto troas reliquias danaium danaiaquimitis aquili arche bat lange latio moltos queperanos erabant actifatis. That's a lot of long syllables. Sorry. Fatis Mariam Niakerkum. Alright. So, upset about all these things. My translation is super casual. I will admit it. Over the sea... Over the whole ocean? What's being tossed about? Yeah, we'll figure it out in a second, I'm sure. Then Troy's doing something. The remains of the Danaids and of unsoft Achilles. I love that. Unsoft. Emites. She was like, oh, okay. Mad about these things. She was keeping away the men who were tossed about, the Trojan men who were tossed about over the whole ocean, the remains of the Greeks and soft Achilles also. She was keeping them all far away from Latium, which is the area near where Rome is, kind of south. And for many years, they were wandering, that is, the A, moving about, driven by the fates over the whole sea. Tantai molles erat Roman nam condere gentum. So great was the burden to found the Roman people. Dun dun dun. So there we get our background, the answer to our question. There is so great anger in celestial souls. Because Juno was really peeved off because they were going to destroy Carthage, and they thought she was ugly, and her husband liked to sleep with many people. And so she tried to keep everybody from getting to Italy, because Italy is where everybody wants to go after the Trojan War. And Virgil wraps up this section by saying, Aeneas had a lot to do. And I think next time we will see what Aeneas is feeling. Yep. We'll hear from... Actually, who are we hearing soon from? Scarcely from Sicily. They were setting sail when Juno... Okay, we do get to hear from Juno first. We get her grievance in the next section. But I'm gonna stop today because I just want to do a little bit chilling out. So we can all go back to Punch's stream now that I've read some Latin. I wanted to do this because I want to get back into reading Latin and also back into doing Latin videos for YouTube. 5-minute Latin to teach people Latin. But it's really fun just to read through some Latin, and there's a lot I could talk about in terms of grammar and style and everything. If you guys enjoyed it, let me know, and always feel free to ask a question about, wait, why did you say that? Where is that? Obviously I'm happy to just do that, but it's fun to just chill out and read some Latin. Maybe I'll do some Greek next time and we'll just mix it up. It's really fun to miss the point entirely and ask questions. Yeah, exactly, Ross. That's a real student experience right there. Anyway, we're just gonna go back into Punch's stream. I'll go ahead and put it in as a raid, even though doesn't necessarily need to be a raid because I think most of you are over there anyway. So, thanks for dropping in. I'll see you guys tomorrow for Final Fantasy VI.